Otuoke in Ogbia local government area of Bayelsa State, about 30 minutes drive from Yenagoa, the state capital, not far from Oloibiri, where the first oil in Nigeria was struck, has been in the news for some time now. Otuoke is the hometown of Nigeria's Vice President, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, GCON, whose father, Pa Lawrence Ebele Jonathan, passed away at the ripe age of 81 years recently. Leading up to the arrival of the remains of late Pa Lawrence Ebele Jonathan from Abuja, friends, relatives and loved ones rallied an unprecedented support for the Vice President's family as they prepared to give their darling father a befitting burial. The wife of the Vice President, Dame Patience Jonathan, enjoyed the support of all her friends, especially wives of governors and service chiefs who joined her at the Nigeria Air Force Base in Port Harcourt as she awaited the arrival of the casket bearing the remains of her late father-in-law. Dressed in customized Ankara fabric which bore the embossed portrait of Pa Lawrence Jonathan looming large on it, they all engaged in hearty discussions and jokes to lighten the burden of such a great loss to the wife of the Vice President, who, as she later explained to us in an exclusive interview, Pa Lawrence Jonathan meant just about everything to her: a father, guardian angel, father-in-law, and indeed a dependable confidant.
It's quite sympathetic. I was young when I lost my own father. But from the day I married my husband and I happened to know my father-in-law, I forgot that I don't have a father. Yeah. Because he's a father in need and a father indeed. A father of my heart. A father that I can't forget in my life. Because he opened all his arms, all his house, and welcomed me. Whatever I am today is my father-in-law that made me. Whatever my children are is my father-in-law that made them. In short, it's him, it's my father-in-law that married me, not even my husband. The death of my father-in-law is part of me is dead. Because I don't think that I can have a man with him like him. My father-in-law, I will say that my father-in-law is everything I have in my life. Anybody that knows me with my father-in-law will know that I have, part of me is already dead. But I pray God Almighty to give me a man like him again to assist me. And I know that wherever he is, he will see me through. He will give me that fatherly advice and he will also guide me. May God and may Almighty Lord protect him and guide him wherever he is. He's a man that I will never forget.
The arrival of the chief mourner, Vice President Goodluck Jonathan, whose presidential jet touched down at the Port Harcourt Air Force Base in time to receive his father's remains, witnessed by his wife, the governors of Rivers and Bayelsa states and their wives, wives of service chiefs, top political bigwigs, businessmen and women, and other dignitaries. Not long after that, the Nigeria Air Force Hercules plane, which bore the remains of late Pa Lawrence Ebele Jonathan, also touched down in the presence of his son and daughter-in-law, as well as other sympathizers and friends, among who were Chief Kenny Martins, National Coordinator of the Police Equipment Fund Foundation, and others. The brief ceremony of moving Pa Lawrence Jonathan's body into the helicopter that was to convey it to Otuoke, its final resting place, conducted by men of the Air Force, was an emotional one for Vice President Goodluck Jonathan, his wife and other close family members.
When our work here is done and the life crown is won and our troubles and trials are o'er, all our sorrow will end and our voices will blend with the loved one.
Before the body arrived Otuoke from Port Harcourt Air Force Base, the whole of the otherwise quiet and sleepy town had been totally transformed into a big spectacle as jubilations rent the air, People who adorned t-shirts and other customized materials which they prepared for the final burial of Pa Lawrence Jonathan had taken position at strategic and vantage points in anticipation of the arrival of the corpse. Pa Lawrence Jonathan is going home as a great hero and an illustrious son of Otuoke community for bequeathing to Nigeria a cool, calculating and intelligent son in the person of Vice President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. The elders of Otuoke and Obia, though turned out in dark attires which symbolizes the mourning of a dear one, did this in style as they lined up on both sides of the field to await the arrival of their hero. The Vice President and his wife were on hand to greet every one of them, one after the other, before the body arrived at the venue. The arrival of the body raised the tempo of activities considerably. The MIC undertakers, who have completely revolutionized their art, were the cynosure of all eyes. Very appropriately dressed in regal and attractive Niger Delta attires, the men and women led by Tunji Okusanya himself bore the body of Pa Lawrence Jonathan on their shoulders, with trumpets and singers dishing out very soulful tunes. They led the procession while the Vice President, his wife and other family members, elders of Otuoke and Obia, as well as friends of the Jonathan family, joined in as the great procession commenced. The procession went through the major streets of Otuoke. The body first birthed at the palace of the paramount ruler of Otuoke in keeping with the age-long tradition of the people. Thereafter, the procession continued until it got to the family house of the Jonathans, where it laid in state as everyone tried to catch a glimpse of their dear father.
Across the bridge, there's no more sorrow. Across the bridge, there's no more pain. The sun will shine across the river, and you'll never be unhappy again.
At the same time, elsewhere in the town, there were lots of activities like traditional wrestling, singing and dancing, and general merrymaking, as all indigents of Otuoke remembered a great son of the soil who had exited to the great beyond graciously. The day of the grand finale of the passing of late Pa Lawrence Jonathan saw an unprecedented assemblage that transcended political, ethnic, religious, cultural, and social backgrounds. Every sector and sphere of society was adequately represented at the event. The traditional institution, particularly from the Niger Delta region and the southeast geopolitical zone, registered a robust presence at the event. Governors, their wives, ministers, as well as past and present political office holders also held sway at Pa Lawrence Ebele Jonathan's final burial ceremony. Top businessmen and women from Nigeria and beyond also stood up to be counted. For politicians from the various divides, it was an occasion to demonstrate that they are ready to sacrifice their narrow personal interest for the success of the larger picture, which is Nigeria. Dim Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, Chief Solomon Lar, Alhaji Abubakar Rimi, and indeed many others who belong to different political parties from that of the Vice President, yet in the spirit of moving the nation forward, all embraced the Vice President with open arms. Captains of industry and other key players in our corporate terrain, many socio-cultural groups in the Niger Delta region and other geopolitical zones of the country were also in attendance. Two former heads of state, General Yakubu Gowon and Chief Ernest Shonoka, also graced the event. Pa Lawrence Jonathan's grand final rites of passage was an occasion which saw the best display of our rich fashions as people turned out in various gorgeous and colorful attires. There was also a rich display of cultural music from different parts of the country, from the Niger Delta, the east, west, north and south. It was a carnival of Nigerian dances which the audience enjoyed tremendously. The grand entry of late Pa Lawrence Ebele Jonathan was done amidst great fanfare and singing as the MIC pallbearers, in yet another fascinating outing, danced round the arena with the casket before laying it in state in the specially decorated place designated for it. In his welcoming remarks at the occasion, the paramount ruler of Otuoke, who spoke through his representative, expressed the joy of the entire community to receive all the guests who have come to honor them at the burial of their illustrious son. The monarch eulogized the sterling qualities of the deceased, which he admonished everyone to emulate. He prayed God to grant the family of the deceased, especially Vice President Goodluck Jonathan, the fortitude to bear the great loss. Governor Timopre Sylvia of Bayelsa State, who mobilized the entire state to give Pa Lawrence Jonathan a most befitting burial, also thanked all those who were part of the success story of the event. He congratulated the Vice President for giving his late father a great honor. Governor Bukola Saraki of Kwara State, who is the current chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, made brief remarks on behalf of all other governors, in which he praised the disciplined life of the deceased, which he said has been replicated in the life of his illustrious son, Vice President Goodluck Jonathan. General Yakubu Gowon also spoke in the same vein, while the elder statesman, community elder, and former Minister for Education, Chief Edwin Clark, also shared his thoughts about the event. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Ambassador Babagana Kingibe, extended the condolences of the federal government to the entire Jonathan family and pledged solidarity with them in this trying period. There were more traditional dances as the event coasted to its home stretch. In his vote of thanks, Vice President Jonathan said that, but for his late father's passionate love for education, though he was not educated himself, he, Dr. Jonathan, would not have been the success he is today. The Vice President described the deceased as a great disciplinarian who was highly respected in Otuoke community and its environs. He added that it would be very difficult to fill the vacuum created by his father's death. The Jonathan family, according to the Vice President, would continue to take solace in the good deeds bequeathed to humanity by his late father. The program formally ended with special prayers for the Vice President and his family by Pastor Ayo Orishe Jafo, President of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, PFN. After that, Pa Jonathan's remains were carried around the arena by the MIC undertakers, with the Vice President, his wife and family members accompanying it as they headed for the interment.
Late Chief Lawrence Ebele Jonathan was a man of indubitable courage. Endowed with superlative wisdom, he was born a natural judge because of his honesty and straightforwardness in everything that he does. He had a tenacious and reliable memory to recount things of great antiquity. It is quite obvious that Dr. Goodluck's intelligence and wisdom is a direct heritage of the brains of his late father. While we continue to cry for the departure of this great man, we are consoled with his products.
I wish to express our profound gratitude and appreciation for this wonderful gesture of Nigerians. Now we believe we belong to Nigeria. We will remain Nigerians. We will remain Nigeria, part of this country. I have seen that you have so much love for our people. And all I can say is to continue to pray that whatever that is happening, we need your understanding. I hope with your visit to this old community, to Bayelsa State, and to the heart of the Jolland, you will now understand our feelings.
May I condole with the people of Bayelsa State and people of Otuoke for this great loss of a great man who had produced so many issues and had helped to give Nigeria a great population. We revere him, we honor him, and we pray for the repose of his soul, that God will grant him perfect peace in heaven. And to our big brother, Mr. Vice President, and to all the Jonathan family, accept our sincere condolence.
From this family has emerged a great leader, that of our Vice President. As you all see, the governors here are coming from all over the country. I think most of all the governors are here all represented. And that is a sign of the kind of leadership the Vice President is providing. His own desire to work, his own love for fairness, equity. And when I was reading through the program, I could see that these were the same distinguished qualities of the great Pa Jonathan.
Pa Jonathan has achieved what most people could not achieve in life. To give birth to a son, to bring that son up in discipline to such an extent that that son becomes the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is a great achievement of Pa Jonathan, and that is one of the reasons why all of us are gathered here to pay our respects to this great son of Nigeria. I have always said to the world that Bayelsa is peaceful. And with this occasion, we thought that this was a great opportunity for us to test the peace. And by His grace, you all now know that this is one of the most peaceful states in Nigeria.
In the few months that His Excellency has been the Vice President of the country, he has shown great outreach. He has been accessible to each and every one. And he has shown great wisdom, great statesmanship as he assists His Excellency the President in steering the affairs of state in such an easy manner, in such a humble way, that he has endeared himself to everyone who works with him and to everyone who has come across him. I believe that that is the legacy and that is the testimony to the late Pa Lawrence Jonathan, that he led a very rich life, very rewarding life, very humble life, very devout life.
My duty is to really thank all of you on behalf of the family of Jonathan and the larger family, and indeed the Otuoke community, because we'll all agree that the burial that is happening today is beyond a family matter, is beyond even a community matter, is beyond even a state matter. You can all see this is a very tiny community dotted in the swamps of the Niger Delta. And for those who come up from this kind of remote places, luck to break out. Even when I started primary school, in my early days in primary school, I used to run away from school. So you know that it takes somebody who knows how to discipline a child to whip us back to school. And that is one thing I'll live to remember my father for. He had no silver and gold to give to me, but he brought us in a highly disciplined manner that really shaped my life. He took care of my education, even though he had no money, but I knew even when I was in secondary school, I did not lack anything. So he tried as a person, under the circumstances of the environment.
Represented at the